Hello and welcome to the podcast Advice Show, your go-to place for latest tips and takeaways. I'm Damien St. John, he's Ant McGinley. We are recording live at the podcast show in London with the fine people at Spiritland Productions, who have very kindly allowed us to sit on their distressed leather chairs and chat to whoever we want for a little bit. We've managed to procure two fine gentlemen of podcasting fare, as they used to say in the old days. Who are you, please?
I'm Adam Jarrell. I am a director and editor and producer. He is
Joel Emery.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm a writer, producer of various audio dramas, including Jack the Ripper, The Offensive, Boom, and Sherlock & Co.
And together we are Holy Smokes Audio.
I forgot that bit.
That was like our
Got the
superhero.
main plug.
Come on, there we go.
Now, what brings you to the podcast show today, chaps? And by the way, welcome and thank you in advance.
Thank you for having us. Our bosses are here.
Okay.
So we wanted to show face to them. Just remind them who we are.
It's been teachers' pets out really.
Yeah, being teachers' pets. And then we are speaking tomorrow with Audio Network, the BBC. Somebody I've forgotten, but they're good. That's my brain.
Yeah, from the podcasting. I can't remember.
Yeah,
he's great.
So we're speaking to them about how to make your podcast sound like TV.
Yeah.
Which you've managed to do several times very well.
Well, it's managed to do. Although it's ironic because our current podcast we're trying to make sound like a podcast and not like TV. But they've invited us onto the panel regardless.
Yeah, I think for a bit of context there, it's a found footage style show with Sherlock & Co. So it's told via the point of view of John Watson with his Zoom H4n recorder. So like Joel says, it's not to sound like TV. It's to sound like a amateur podcast.
I love it. Let's start with some questions then. Congratulations on Sherlock & Co. How was the idea born, and has it gone the way you expected it to, or surpassed expectations?
Well, there's an old friend of ours called Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. He wrote these stories a long time ago. And when they went out of public domain, we were like, we'll have them. No, that's not how it went at all. Tony Pasta at Goalhanger is our executive producer. He had the idea a few years ago, didn't he?
Yeah, in 2021.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he wanted a true crime style audio drama doing all of the stories, all of the canon, which is a word that I wasn't that familiar with until we embarked upon this journey in Arthur Conan Doyle's world. Every single short story and novel, we want to be the first to kind of modernize and adapt it. And that's Joel's main job with adapting the stories for a modern audience. And he approached us after the success of The Offensive and Jackie the Ripper and Boom. And obviously, we were aware of Tony, we were aware of Goalhanger. They were just growing when we first met them. I think there was about 4 members of staff, weren't there, or something?
Yeah, there was no Restless Politics.
No.
There was no Restless Entertainment. They had the Restless History and We Have Ways pod.
He asked and we said yes.
Yeah, we said yeah.
And the rest is history.
That's good.
Yeah.
And did you know it was going to be Sherlock? Then did that idea come specifically from you guys on the Sherlock, or?
No, that was Tony.
That was Tony's insistence. Yeah. It's not. I don't think it's something that would have necessarily come to us. I think if you're outside of the Sherlockian world, you think that Sherlock shows are absolutely everywhere, and we really saturated the market. But the second you speak to Sherlockians or people that really, really love the work, you realise that actually the original stories aren't adapted. People just take the characters and make their own story. Or they'll say this is Sherlock Holmes's daughter, or they'll say this is John Watson's life after.
Here's Iron Man as Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Sony's thing was the USP for this show needs to be, let's get those original short stories down in the modern age, in a modern format. So we did that. We spent about 18 months developing it, probably had 12 episodes banked up. The show comes out every single week and has done every week since the 10th of October 2023. And yeah, we kind of sat there for 18 months. We've kind of thought that Goalhanger were maybe deliberating on whether they should release it at all. They were a completely different company by the time our release date was coming up. But no, they released it. Everyone at Goalhanger loves it. We've had massive cameos from all the sort of Goalhanger stable people. Those requests have genuinely come downstream to us. Gary Lineker asked to be in the show. Dominic Sandberg asked to be in the show, and with the other people. So we feel like sort of very special and wanted at such a massive company. But crucially, we're an audio drama, so we still feel small and independent compared to, half the things we're going to see at this convention.
So I've got a question for you. Talked about how it's the found footage concept, and I want to know, is it harder to make it sound like that than it would be to make it sound like a traditional audio drama, or would it be kind of the same amount of work?
That's a good question. I think there's pros and cons to both. I think there's a lot. I know Joel's writing from working for him for so long that
For him.
Did I say for him?
you did.
Oh God!
Oh,
They're the
fire
cat's
up.
out the bag now, isn't it? God! Oh God! I'm gonna get fired. Working with Joel. Sorry. That I know that sometimes when you're thinking, how do I get out of this scene?
Yeah.
Watson can start to say something that he wouldn't release. He wouldn't release himself. Or it's a good way for us to kind of sort of up the gauge as far as like threat or any kind of danger or high stakes at the end, because we release the stories in 2, 3, 4, 5, sometimes 10 for novels at parts over those weeks as well. It's a good way to produce a natural cliffhanger that would happen if you were with someone. They were like, turn that microphone off now, and he has to. And we can also kind of bookend it with a few sort of meta is the term. Again, another term that I've heard so much since we started the show ago, where Watson can come in and do his edit notes during the show, which I think it helps an audience become friends with Watson rather than witnessing him. You are with him, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Sounds a little bit wanky, but do you know what I mean? You are kind of you are in his pocket with him, and I think that helps with the storytelling. From my opinion, Joel as the writer will have the definitive answer. I mean, I do work for him, so yeah.
I think it really helps with kinetics. I mean, Ant will know because Ant's worked with us, particularly on Jackie the Ripper, which has a car chase in it, which is a ridiculous thought audio drama. It really helps with the kinetics because you want to add like some sort of energy to a scene. The microphone bumping around or clanging about as they're sprinting towards, getting a perpetrator of something or whatever, it really adds to it.
Yeah.
And when you're making a sort of clean, crisp audio drama, which I assure you we have made or tried to make every now and again, there is a kind of, it's quite difficult to instill energy into audio drama. It's quite a relaxed, low-key thing a lot of the time. So the mic really helps in that area.
I think for anybody that hasn't listened to audio drama, it's a million miles away from The Archers, which might be the
and that's not to discredit The Archers, because obviously it's there it's an institution for a reason, but we like the naturalistic sound, especially with it being Watson with his microphone. Sometimes someone will laugh, sigh, even yawn, maybe if they're that bored with the script. And if it makes sense for the character to do so, I'm like, keep it in.
Yeah.
They'll
Don't
stop themselves.
over-edit or over-produce,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Go with what's on the table.
Yeah. But as the show has grown, Watson's editing skills have grown as well. So, for instance, we have a nice, spoiler alert, but we have a nice audio montage that Joel produced for the end of this 5-part adventure that back in 2023, Watson would never do it because he was just learning how to press record.
right.
So we can flex our editing muscles a little bit more now. We've got a bit more free reign with an artistic license, whereas before it was when it first started, it was very, sort of and static and mic being dropped, wires
Basic.
Yeah, very basic, which added to the charm. I think it made people go, oh, this is a different Watson.
Yeah.
This is a different Sherlock. This is a different
We
2 to 1B.
noticed that audio, that growth when we did Wrestling with the Chammer. So from our first season or two, which was very much, it sounded like a podcast, it was very basic, to a season finale which started on a spoof of the plane ride from hell.
Yeah.
It was the plane ride from Hull.
Right.
So I'd written it really tight. It's 2 pages from the airport to the plane crashes, right? Super fast. But Ant's got no audio cues other than window breaks and alarm goes off. How do you guys get the balance between what's written and what it sounds like at the end then? Is there much conversation from a written perspective first?
As far as like conversation between Joel and myself, I think Joel's wife and my partner, they know that they kind of have to share with each other, don't we? With us, because we speak to each other a lot. It helps that we're best buds. But yeah, I think just through the shows that Joel and I have done together, we kind of know. I think we know what each other's going to do before we do it.
Right. So you're writing, thinking about how it would get produced
Yeah,
down the line, and then that's a feedback. It's like a loop then.
generally speaking, I think I will put audio cues in the script only when that's me basically saying this scene will definitely need this.
Very specific.
And it's often for clarity.
Yeah.
Audio drama at the end of the day. So it's often to make sure that something is coming across as clear as possible. But yeah, we also have a review. We'll have a review of Adam's, I suppose you would call it a first draft. It's more than a first draft. It's much closer.
A second draft?
Yeah, it's a second draft that we never had.
version 1, basically. Yeah. 1.5, yeah.
So we'll kind of do a review, and most of the time it's just about clarity.
Yeah.
Is it clear enough of the visual thing that's happening?
Yeah, there'll be times when you'll be like, I know you were in Soho recording the actual
that's
sound of walking through Soho, but it needs to be a bit louder, or maybe add a few cars just so people know that we're outside.
And it's such a shortcut. I find sound effects a shortcut to the writing, because maybe when you first start writing, if people are listening to this thinking, I'm going to write an audio drama, they might be tempted to kind of write in real time.
Yeah.
And when you think, well, I've got to write to page, or this scene needs to be 2 minutes, A, that sharpens your writing, but B, the sound can do a lot of the work for you.
Yeah.
You don't need to go, oh, my phone's ringing, for example. You just put the sound effects in and have someone go, hello?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Just little shortcuts that you can do.
Exactly. And in a filmic language, you'd have an establisher, you'd just show the building that they're in. It happens all the time in any sitcom, any TV show, there'll be an establisher. So now and again, Joel will give me the note, and I always forget, because I'm like, I've got to establish where we're at. You'll have mind the gap, and you're like, we're on the tube. We're not just on the train, we're not on the metro, anywhere else. We're on the London Underground, and that just helps a bit as well. Little sort of signposts to place the characters, and for the audience to go, okay, we're on the tube, that's why it's loud, that's why there's a lot going on, because it's not visual.
Do you ever think it's a lot of work? We could have just sat and talked about football and movies
every day. But then, yes, we do think that a lot, but it's wonderful. It is just wonderful to be able to build these worlds, and the hours you put in, through doing audio drama, the hours you put in are insane.
Yeah.
But it will hopefully, touch wood, it will stand the test of time, and it's amazing to give people a bit of release and escapism.
Do you think that's why you've built the community that you have? Because that's something that I find just as amazing as the stories that you tell and the way that you tell them, is the interaction is insane. The pictures that people draw, the animation that they put together.
Yeah.
And it was like how do you guide any of that, or does that just happen? Is that...
We're very lucky with our fan base. They're very creative.
We're very lucky.
Super creative.
Yeah. So I think the second half of your first question was actually basically, did we expect any of that? And the answer is not really no. And even the sort of super bright people at Goalhanger who get nearly everything right, it would seem, they did not expect this fan base at all. We just genuinely did not know that they were there. We thought we were getting some Restless History listeners, some Restless Politics listeners, maybe a few people that kind of crossing over. Whereas we have a really, really young, keen audience, very familiar with all Sherlock works. And actually what we realised had happened completely by accident was that the BBC had left behind a vacuum of a show and an audience that audience were that they weren't served enough. Mm-hmm. And then we sort of stepped into it unknowingly. Yeah. And then there's a group of people that were absolutely desperate for Sherlock content. And it just so happened that our Sherlock was always going to be neurodiverse. These people are all neurodiverse. It just so happened we were always going to do, The Offensive. They're obviously swearing at each other and stuff, but it was about sort of like friendships, closeness, is a nourishing listen.
The thing is, I think it's more than that, because it's not just a true crime. There's a comedy in it. And also there's an episode recently, again with no spoilers, where it ends with Watson's monologue, and it's, even just thinking about it now, I'm tearing up. It's a very, very powerful, and obviously Paul that plays that part, brilliantly amazing actor. Yeah. But it's such it's not a one-trick pony.
No, that's nice you say, and also hopefully that reflects the original works. It genuinely, people know 3 or 4 Sherlock Holmes stories. I'm the same. When Tony pitched the idea to us, and he was like, "We'll do all the short stories," I genuinely thought, I don't know what he's talking about. I just assumed all this time Sherlock Holmes was maybe 2 novels, maybe 3 novels. And they bounce around all over the place. There's all sorts of different victims and perpetrators and all these kind of different things. And that's the first thing that Adam and I said. We want a show where people go, "Oh, I didn't love that one. It's not my favourite. I love this one." And then someone else who's so similar to them could be like, "Oh no, I actually didn't like that one. I like this one."
Yeah.
So to have like a bit of a mixture to them. We were always going to do comedy. We've tried to dilute our comedy sometimes and not do as much, but it just doesn't. We're not good at not doing comedy.
But I think the reason why I kind of asked that question was when people come to make a podcast, they'll often find somebody's already doing a podcast like that.
Yeah.
Right? And so for you to come in and do this, there's so many people that have done so many iterations of Sherlock.
Yeah.
I can imagine a lot of people would have been like, why? Why?
I know, yeah, and I mean, and to be honest, I think when we were first approached, we were like, "Oh, is there a market there? Is there a market?" I mean, there were at the time. I think there was one being made where Bill Nighy was playing Watson, but he was a cat. So there's so many. Honestly, there's so many different iterations of it, and there was the another one on Amazon, the Moriarty focused one with Dominic from I can't remember his surname.
Monaghan?
That's it. And we were like, "Is there a need for it?" But then when we realised that, it's all the short stories, and coming back to Joel's point, it's almost like Shakespearean as far as you've got the tragedies, you've got the comedies. There's a little bit of that with Sherlock as well. There are some cases where you're like, this could be taken and put as a plot for James Bond, for a James Bond film. And there's other ones where you're like, this could be like Hetty Wainthropp or Midsummer Murders. You know, there's such low stakes and there's massive stakes. And we've got everything in between, so we can really play with that.
Yeah, so we know you're going to write the next James Bond film. That's,
That's done.
We won't. He doesn't like James Bond, do you?
Yeah,
Not till he writes it.
No, but that's it. He's a bit old hat now. They're definitely the progression of the James Bond films is you've outgrown yourself, and that model of man doesn't work in the modern world because spies are actually quite dull, maybe on purpose, or maybe it's all characters. I want in a second for you to say very nice things about Goalhanger because I think they are the production company of the moment. But first, and I know you touched on the gap that the BBC left, I think we've seen that with Doctor Who and Big Finish. Like the fan base just then takes over and it becomes an expansive world. I would like to know, obviously you guys did The Offensive. How hard was it having built that to leave it behind? Because somebody once said to me, if you're onto a good thing, certainly in audio and comedy, keep it going. Like if you're Steve Coogan, keep doing Partridge. Maybe not as much, but you can never really let it go. How hard was it to think, right, okay, now is a good time and we'll take a gamble on something else?
I think The Offensive, it's a really good question. I think The Offensive, with it being our first project together, sort of professional project together in audio, we didn't want it to go. I mean, we did 5 years of The Offensive, and so much happened over that time in our personal lives that I think we were like, we don't want it to go on forever because eventually someone will go, oh yeah, after year 6 it got a bit crap, and we'd be annoyed with ourselves. I mean, John Cleese did 12 episodes of Fawlty Towers, was there? And people still look back on that as
2 seasons of The Office in the UK.
Exactly. So that's what we were kind of thinking. We didn't want it to become a dead horse that we were flogging as much as we loved it. And the 5-year plan for in the storyline was reflected in the show, the storyline of the show as well. And also Joel is a nihilist and he likes to just kill everyone off. So there's some spoilers. Yeah.
Nihilism. I mean, I don't know what, when it comes to football, it's like nihilism and steroids.
Yeah.
Like it cannot possibly have a happy ending. It must be.
Yeah. It's never tempted to scratch the itch and do one. Because I bet you'd have all that muscle memory.
Yeah, but it was tied up in such a lovely bow, wasn't it?
It was tied up in a bow. It was. I wonder if we were doing sort of like season drops. Here's 10 episodes. Everyone have a break. Here's 10 episodes. Maybe if it would have felt like more of a thing, but it always felt like such a weekly show to us. It would be so strange to have. Here's just one, or here's just 2.
But then there was always, and maybe this is your writing. There was always something I noticed in it where there would be little breadcrumbs and then things would happen later and you go, oh, this was always planned, this was always there. Similarly, like Bad Wolf in Doctor Who, those kinds of things that come through. And you go, that's something that stood out to me when I first listened to the show, because I would say for a lot of podcasters, you literally do the show in front of you and then move on to the next one. And you don't really plan ahead that much. So that was one of the things that stood out to me as being different with what you guys did.
Yeah, you sort of have to do it as well. Like a modern audience, because it's drama, are expecting, okay, where's the arc? We've only just had to, genuinely had to introduce that concept to Sherlock Effect. I think we've got away with maybe 14 months.
Yeah.
We've got away with maybe just over a year of standalone stories, standalone this, standalone that. But now we've just started to dribble in that Moriarty's out there who listens to the show.
Yeah.
And all this kind of thing. And people absolutely adore it. And I'm gutted. I'm absolutely gutted, because it's not because it's from a laziest thing. I think it's from like a purist thing. We thought our USP is, here's the short stories, modernized as the guy that wrote them would have intended. These characters don't know each other. They're not all linked. It's not all part of one grand plan.
Yeah. We wanted people to jump in and go, oh, I remember reading The Red-Headed League. Let me pick it up.
Yeah.
But you can, because it's before when we started.
Yeah.
But from now, people are
it's
just going to be listening out for Moriarty shouts.
It's just what people expect. And you can completely oversaturate when you do standalone stuff every week.
What's the secret to having a good Patreon, like in terms of the content and things that you put on there and stuff that you do for the fans? Because you've done it very well with The Offensive and now again with Sherlock.
I think don't neglect it. It's very easy to kind of have it and be like, oh, that's fun. And then just kind of let it go from stuff that's weekly to fortnightly, and people will go, hang on a minute, what am I getting for my monies? What am I, everyone's struggling at the moment for money, so you want to make sure you give value for money. Also, be proactive with speaking to your fans and to your listeners. We're lucky because Joel cosplays the wrong term, but Joel is John Watson on Twitter, and then he's John Watson on the Discord. So people can ask him, can then live Q&As with John Watson, and occasionally Sherlock Holmes as well, when I remember to log in. Yeah. And that's for a show with a passionate fan base like Sherlock, that's a nice thing for listeners to be able to do, to be able to chat with those characters. They're all aware. You made a wrestling show, you know about suspension of disbelief. That's the true joy of pro wrestling.
Turn him into a wrestler was the.
Well, there you go. Yeah,
that's life imitates art.
Yeah.
We go to Edinburgh and he's in cosplay flying, and then they come and see the show. It's exactly the same. Like why?
Absolutely.
Like if you're a Disney character, why take the mask off? Right, just stay in character and keep it going.
Yeah. So I think as far as Patreon goes, just make sure you've got enough to offer value for money. Would be my tip. You can't just. I mean, it's fine to have something where you like, give us a couple of quid, keep the lights on. That's fine, because a lot of people will do that. I'll do that with shows that I like.
If this is completely unromantic, and I apologise, but the people at Goal Hanger will tell you the same thing. There he is now. If you do big drops, Wrestler's History is a good example. They'll say, here's
Part 1 of 8 or
French Revolution. Yeah. Dominic and Tom are going to do all 7 or 8 for the members. It makes the members feel really fortunate, for a start, but also it makes people want to buy into it. There is nothing that we've done that has been more attracting to people or has made members happier than you got the stuff first, here it is.
Yeah.
Genuinely,
value,
that is
real value.
Yeah, that is. I mean, if you want to be completely unromantic and dive into numbers, we release a big series, we get a bunch of people, and the members get really happy. They don't mind the fact that they have 3 or 4 weeks of smaller additional content of Watson and Sherlock having, answering questions, or maybe a behind the scene for me and Adam. They want to gobble up binge that story and know that it's made for them, and that the rest of the world is just waiting on it week by week.
Yeah, we're still in a binging culture, aren't we, with Netflix and Prime and Disney? People want to binge, and they want to kind of get ahead and then rewatch it for stuff that they missed before, and I can understand that. Yeah. And that's what we do with our show.
Well, you've created several fantastic worlds and enhanced at least one other in the form of Sherlock. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Your body of work. Just quickly then on Goal Hanger, are you pitching proactively the next thing for them, or are they like, you guys would be perfect for this thing that we're cooking up? Because actually, because as a podcast agency, as ad sales, they all have to work in tandem. So it's got to work for everybody. How does that next big idea come through for you guys?
We're lucky because Tony Pasta, who is a co-founder of Goal Hanger, it was his idea to do Sherlock & Co. And when we signed up for them, it was for other content as well, wasn't it? Sort of a first look deal at our other content that we're working on. Sherlock's become such a beast that everything's taken a bit of a backseat, but we are working on a second show with Goalhanger at the moment, and a potential third at the end of the year, but we can't say any more than that, I don't think, really.
The only thing sort of in that area is that, again, it was dictated to us to go and make. The next thing that we're making is their commission rather than something that we've brought to them.
Yeah. And as creatives, that makes sense because you're feeding then back into business needs to keep the lights on, to make money, to keep growing audiences for the network.
Yeah.
And that allows you the freedom to go off and do the writing and the creativity that you went to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, also, to blow Goalhanger's horn, their reach is completely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is so because of the amount of people that listen to their stuff. Also, they're not, and this isn't me having a go Audible over Spotify, they're not Audible in Spotify. They don't have a library of hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of things. They have at most a dozen things. So when they do recommend something, when they do a trailer of something, they get really big uptick of people listening.
Yeah.
Because they're so confident, because they are having hit after hit after hit, it makes us confident. So when we release the show, we sort of go, we think we know what it is. We think there's an audience for it.
Yeah.
We could be with a bunch of other networks that won't necessarily find that audience. Well, we know that Goalhanger will find it.
And I think having the Gary Lineker name attached to it is such a phrase that I've heard used a few times in the podcast show already, is a pattern disruptor. Because you're not just, it's come from Audible, it's come from Amazon, but like you said, all the names I would expect content, and then I'm kind of preconditioned as to what that content will be like.
Yeah.
You'll go, why is Gary Lineker involved in podcasting? And all of a sudden, you've stopped people in their tracks of scrolling or listening to something enough to go, I'm going to give this a bit of attention.
Yeah.
I think it's such a disruptive moment for podcasts.
Yeah, and it's nice because he is a listener as well. He loves the show, which is very, very nice, and he's had a cameo in a show as well, so he's singing our praises online, which is fun. It's always good to get a little bit of traction online and get ears on the show. So we're very fortunate, and he cares, like because he's co-founded the company with Jack and Tony, and they all care about the show, and that's all you can ask from the producers, that they care. Otherwise, you're just another fish in the pond, whereas we're in a nice pond with nice people. And
So I guess the final question is, who's your favourite character in Sherlock?
Oh my word. We had this not long ago, didn't we, from our listeners on a Q&A, and I think I went for Wiggins, who is one of the irregulars, which in the original stories, I believe the irregulars were all children.
They're like street urchins.
They're like Artful Dodger and Fagin, Artful Dodger's gang. And in our version, it's my friend John, who is 42, I think. John, he'll kill me if he sees this. And he got this really deep sort of, Dublin voice. And he, I thought it was more Northern Irish really, but he's from Limerick, and he puts on this deeper voice. But we've made the character, he's just turned 18, and it's a little bit like Wolfie in that episode of The Inbetweeners where Will goes on work experience. And it's like, you're 17. That's what we wanted for that. So just for comedic value, I love it when Wiggins turns up.
Yeah, Wiggins is good. My really boring answer, but it probably is honest, is John Watson.
Yeah.
I was going for none of the main three. You've been really boring.
Yeah, that is really boring.
I know your other
I like
favourite.
a ham and cheese sandwich.
Easy on the cheese.
Yeah, no mayo. We like Langdale Pike.
I do like Langdale Pike, yeah. Langdale Pike.
No one from Scotland Yard.
Tom Gregson. I apologise, Anne. I meant who. I thought the question was who.
We'll have to cut that.
It's when it
we'll
was
have to cut that. Sorry. Tom Gregson. D.I. Tom Gregson.
Yeah. Our phrase at Podomedy and on the Podcast Advice show is don't start a podcast alone. You guys have worked together for a while. If there are podcasting duos out there, or there's somebody who wants to be in a duo or doesn't know how to get started, is there any sort of advice that you could give for them? Because it is a lonely thing, and even two of you, when you first start out, it's still quite lonely.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think make friends at school, then don't be that close until a few years later.
Right.
Yeah. No.
That's too prescriptive for our situation.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, we're very fortunate to have found each other.
But podcasting is such a community, right? So people can reach out to other... If you want to be like a show, people can reach out to them and go, hey, can I have some advice? Or can you give me some...
Absolutely.
It's not a closed door, right?
No. And events like this, there'll be so many people here in that exact situation today. And I'd just encourage people to just don't wait, just reach out. If you've got a good idea, just reach out. And people always want to collaborate.
Yeah, actually, I mean, this is a really good example. I mean, I've ended up working with you guys because I basically fanboyed you from the offensive and said, I love your show, it's great.
Doesn't hurt. Flattery doesn't hurt.
Oh, absolutely.
Except you didn't say it in that voice, you said it in your normal voice. And I remember saying to Adam, he's got a really good voice.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
got a really good natural voice.
Yeah.
Because I made you one of the opening voices in Jackie the Ripper.
Can't find his knob.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I really like
Oh, is that a sound from the show? Okay.
Talking about something else. There's something about ants. Like we really like natural sounding voices. Narlan's another example that we always come back to because no matter what like you put her in a scenario of playing various characters, it always seems so natural.
Oh yeah.
Helena's the same. We always kind of liked that natural, just that kind of like naturalism. That means nudity, doesn't it?
Hey, that's the next
Naturalist.
podcast.
Yeah. Imagine that in audio.
Listen naked.
It's very descriptive.
So I think we kind of built a sort of a roster of people who we trusted. They're sort of in the podcast industry or podcast adjacent or acting industry where they know, I'm not saying that they just drop a hat and do it, but they know, they understand schedules. They understand that, you might want to do a pickup. And they're sort of like chucking their voice out there and going, is that okay? Is that any good? Because you'll meet plenty of actors who are really talented, really, really good, but they just work in a different way.
Yeah.
And it doesn't lend itself to a weekly podcast.
No, you need to get lucky. Yeah, you need to.
We're definitely over time, but did you get your award that you couldn't turn up for that he picked up on your
Yes,
behalf? I
yeah,
mean, there's
you
so
bet.
many. I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, it was the Independent
There you
Podcast
go.
Awards, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Joel has it. I think I need to take care of it for a bit now, but Joel has it at the moment.
We have the same issue because he won it. He's got it at his
It's
house.
mine because I born the show, but you can have the next one.
Yeah.
Just-
I've just got to say as well, I'm so jealous of Wrestling with the Champ because there's one thing I'm encyclopedic about, it's pro wrestling,
Well.
and you've done it. So if we ever fall out, it'd be great for me because I'm about right. We're going to do it. Yeah. So let's just stay friends. But yeah, good job with your shows.
Thank
guys.
you.
Thanks for having us.
Special thanks to Adam and Joel. Now from Goalhanger, from The Offensive, Jackie the Ripper, Sherlock & Co. Boom, and Project TBC. We're very excited.
Yeah, thanks again to our hosts for today, Spiritline Productions, for this amazing show.
This is the only bit he's professional when he turns to camera.
Yeah.
And he's going to put it on his CV. This will be the first thing.
Yeah, exactly.
When he applies for that daytime job on ITV.
He's
You'll
a
find
bloody,
it.
he's a bloody pro.
Go and check out Sherlock & Co. and their previous podcast, Jackie the Ripper, Boom,
I just said
and
that.
of course The Offensive, but I did it better. That's why. We're at the podcast show. By the time you see this, it'll be over, but make sure you come next year.